Never, ever, ever, but never, ever, never a dull day in South Africa. Okay, so the DA took Treasury to court to try and interdict the 0.5% VAT hike. The EFF joined the DA on the application. The last statement that was a bombshell was when Advocate Ngcukaitobi basically came to put the nail on the coffin to say Minister of Finance played ActionSA, lied to them and they fell for it, bamboozled them and they accepted it, tricked them and they took it all, hook, line, and sinker. So I'm going to play that for you. After that, you're going to get a present. I'm going to give you a 3-minute good, the bad, the ugly of this full day hearing, and then give you my biblical reaction. Okay, so let's hear Ngcukaitobi slamming, crushing, proving that the Minister of Finance certainly lied. Okay, let's hear.
The first is just to explain the minister's deception, which hasn't actually been answered, despite the attempts. So the problem with the minister is that he, in paragraph 81, and that's the paragraph they rely upon, sorry, 80.1, which is at 0345. So he first refers to what the EFF says at paragraph 99 to 100, because he says the EFF says that my decision was unconstitutional because I acted with deception and dishonesty. The basis for this appears to be an accusation that I gave the public the impression that the VAT rate increase could still change, even though I allegedly knew it would not. The submission is unsupported. And then he says, with respect, this allegation is both unsupported by any evidence and difficult to follow. This is what he then says. I have never suggested that I could revoke the announcement at will, nor have I misled the public. From the outset of my announcement, the National Treasury, SARS, and I have consistently and publicly stated that the VAT rate will increase to 15.5% on 1 March 2025. That remains my position. So that's the first element of the deception. He says in his affidavit, I've never told you that this would be subject to a change. From the beginning up until now, I always told you it would be increased. The problem with that is that it cannot be squared up with paragraph 47.1, 47.2, 47.3, 47.4, which is what the EFF says he told Athol Trollip, particularly at paragraph 47.3, where Athol Trollip says, in a text message with the minister, the latter said to him, I imagine you will be able to come up with proposals to replace the revenue proposals. So rather than dispensing with the allegation of deception, paragraph 80.1 and 80.2 and 80.3 simply prove the deception. So the minister, I'm afraid, has been deceptive. And this is part of the duty of the court, is to call out the deceptions.
I'm afraid the minister bamboozled ActionSA. So we spoke about it and we showed how ridiculous it was in a video up here when I went live. So let me tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly from this case. I'll give you a quick roundup. I'll give you a street side gossip. Okay, let's give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, so there was a lawyer for the DA. Their argument was a minister just can't get up, announce a VAT, and it must happen just because a minister said it. So they're saying that provision for the minister gives the minister too much power. And so their lawyer was very good. And then Ngcukaitobi, an advocate I love to hear argue, he says he came for the EFF to say that VAT hike, you've already said it will impact the poor, so therefore they never took into consideration that the Constitution, forces them to think about equality. Very, very good point that was made by Ngcukaitobi for the EFF. And I forgot the DA's lawyer also did great job, followed. Then we had the ANC lawyer, who first took the first 10 minutes kind of not saying anything for someone who knew they only had 10 minutes before they engaged with the judges. And her name is Mahlapi Sillo, I think. And then they spent the next bunch of time with the judges saying to her, do you know what you're talking about? And she basically kept answering, no, I don't know what I'm talking about, but listen, I need to tell you more.
With a further 5.5% for the next financial year, cumulatively 1%.
I think the 10 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Okay, you can continue.
We submit that in so doing, the minister at least did the basic, the first, which was to comply with the provisions of both the PFMA and the Money Bills Act.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Since this is the entire scheme, it's a whole scheme starting with Section 27 submission.
Yes.
What happens if at the end of it, the Parliament votes down or doesn't adopt the fiscal framework, and all of it everything that's in there falls away because it's not adopted? So what happens? Can the minister continue with the announcement made in respect of the alteration of the VAT rate?
My response to that question is, Helen should recall that the minister must prepare a fiscal framework. And in terms of the law, once presented to Parliament, Parliament must then direct that fiscal framework to the appropriate committees, including the Finance Committee,
Yes.
for comment and deliberation. In terms of Section 4...
In terms of Section 8 of the money for acceptance or amendment.
Indian money.
Mm.
So in terms of Section 7 of the Money Bills Act, if I can find it.
So what if it's amended? Maybe my question should be rephrased. What if it is amended and amend the VAT rate itself? What happens there?
What ought to happen, on my understanding, is if we go to Section 8, I've gone offline a bit. Apologize for that. If we go to Section 8, and that's the section dealing with the adoption of the fiscal framework.
Yes.
Subsection 6, the respective reports of the committees on finance must include the responses to the minister. Now, if we understand that is the framework,
Yes.
it would suggest that the finance committee would debate the fiscal framework. It would accept or amend. Those amendments must be put before the Minister of Finance for his consideration and response. His response then constitutes part of the fiscal framework, which in terms of Section 8 sub 6, both will serve before the National Assembly.
Yes. Now, what happens if there's a flaw in the sense that the process that you're articulating did not take place as it's supposed to in terms of Section 8? What happens to the announcement, the submission by the minister?
That announcement and its effect sustain until Parliament has voted on the Act to amend the Act to increase the VAT to 15.5%. Of that, and that is the reading of Section 7.4 itself. it subjects that increase to confirmation or rejection, as the case may be, by Parliament. So,
Sorry to interrupt you, but at this stage, my understanding is that we're dealing with a fiscal framework. So Parliament must, at this point in time, if the Minister announces a VAT rate increase in the fiscal framework, Parliament must then debate it after it has gone to the various committees.
Yes.
And if Parliament decides, well, we don't need a 0.5, we need a 0.4, what happened then?
Then the VAT will be increased by 0.4 because the eventual decision is that of the National Assembly.
But it doesn't, in terms of the Act, is that, in terms of the Constitution, they put it differently, it's only the Minister that can introduce a money bill.
Okay.
And the money bill has not been introduced yet of a 0.4. When is he going to do that?
It's a 0.5% money bill.
Yes.
Money bill. And the Parliament, in its legislative processes, is entitled to consider that proposal in the money bill, adopt or amend.
Can I just come before that, if you don't mind? Because I'm just wondering, to follow up with what my brother is asking, at this stage, we're still going through the process, the Section 8 process.
Yes.
And are you saying that if Parliament says the report, the committees, and then Parliament endorses it, that we don't want 0.45, we want 0.4? Are you saying based on that amendment at that stage, then the announcement by the Minister will be trumped by that amendment without legislation in 12 months' time?
No, the legislation is no. Let me correct myself. What will trump is the passing of a legislation that imposes 0.4.
But that's too early. So if the amendment by the National Assembly is 0.4, then the 0.5 cannot proceed. Because the fiscal framework has now been, there's an agreement on the part of it's resolved, the National Assembly, that a 0.4 VAT increase must be effected. Therefore, the fiscal framework, there's an amendment that has been resolved.
Can I take a step back, my lady? The Minister suggests in the fiscal framework 0.5. The Portfolio Committee considers the fiscal framework. It makes its own recommendations, which are put before the Minister of Finance, who considers them, and that whole lot steps before the National Assembly. So when the National Assembly debates, firstly, the notion of VAT increase and the rate, it has the benefit of all views, and it's open to Parliament to decide.
At that stage, regardless of 7.4 announcement, regardless of what was said by the Minister.
Of what was said. However, because of the nature of Section 7.4, which has technically amended the rate in 7.1, to correct that amendment, then Parliament must pass that money bill.
But that's down the line.
That is down the line.
But what happens from the 1st of May if
Then
Parliament
the Minister's determination must subsist.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to ask. Despite the 0.4 amendment.
Because of the effect that decision has, it has already amended the Act.
How can that be, Ms. Zero?
And that's the point I'm coming to, my lady. Whether or not that is possible.
So they had that back and forth for about 20 minutes where the judges just ended up going, okay, whatever, have it your way, do your thing. Here's what I want to say before I give you my biblical reaction and tell you whether are we going to have a 0.5% VAT hike or not. Okay, everyone knows by now that ActionSA has had a crazy obsession with the DA. Now, I know they probably think DA voters will be the one that they can get. And so anyway, at the beginning of ActionSA coming out, they said they would take out the ANC, not only because of ANC incompetence, but because Herman Mashaba said the ANC are God-hating, they are Marxists. He called them communists. So he said, if these communists can go, because they hate God anyway, if they can go, we'll be happy. And the day that anyone in ActionSA says that that they want to work with the ANC, well, then they must just receive that as my resignation, because I will never work with communists. I will never work with race hustlers who use race to divide us. They are communists and I'm a capitalist, he said. And they use race to divide us and they are corrupt and all of that. Now, as soon as ActionSA decided to work with ANC in Johannesburg and Pretoria, something, I have no judgments about, because, it falls within the ambits of playing politics and changing mind and whatever, politicians don't, walk the straight and narrow generally. So I was fine with that, except that he began to be 100% Marxist, race hustler, white hater, black victim. And when he did it the first time, I sort of got that, of course, the ANC's most effective political strategy against the DA is to just brand them as white party and racists. So I knew he was playing into that, but it just kept going and going and going and going to the point where I wonder, well, if all we're gonna hear is Herman Mashaba saying white people are racist, all of them, and they're all guilty of apartheid and they all hate black people, and if anyone asks her questions anything, he says, yeah, you question me because I'm black, I'm tired of white people thinking. So I always think, don't you have Trollip leading and he's a white guy in parliament, and you have Beaumont as chairperson, I think he's a white guy in the leadership. But going further, I then heard Nasipi Moya, the ActionSA mayor in Tshwane, preaching the gospel of Karl Marx, anointed by the power of Satan that has burnt churches, that has killed people of starvation, that has murdered people with repression and oppression, that has always hated the gospel, that has always hated the family, that has always hated all traditional morality. She was preaching that gospel. The world is made up of no one except the oppressed minority and the oppressive majority. And the injustice, we must rise, and the revolution, we must unite, and then we must overthrow it and make progress. And she sounded so ANC. She was like the transformation agenda of the, if you can think of a word, she says it. And unfortunately, Uncle Herman also, he just speaks white privilege, transformation, apartheid. He's a communist now. And so I don't know what to make of it. Because I think there are limits to how far we can play politics. And as far as I am concerned, Herman Mashaba is a God-hating Marxist. ActionSA is a God-hating Marxist party. Initially, I thought they were just fighting for DA space, but no, they are a God-hating Marxist party. I say it, and finally, that's my standpoint. That's what I'll tell anybody who asks me. ANC, EFF, MK, ActionSA are bad for South Africa. They are God-hating, Marxist, family-hating, peace-hating, country-dividing, poverty-producing parties. And my standpoint with them is this: make no friendship with an angry man. Politics of anger are very dangerous. They actually lead to real bloodshed. They actually lead to real premature death. They actually lead to real collapse of health services. They actually lead to real crime. I can tell you, not on the basis of any facts, not on the basis of any rumors, but on the basis of principle. Mr. Herman Mashaba has been bribed or has stolen money, is busy receiving a bribe or is busy stealing, and if not, will take bribes henceforth or will steal. There's no way not to. It is impossible to be Marxist and not steal. And it's become clear that ActionSA is a Marxist organization. They are stealing, they have stolen, or they will be stealing. Mark my words, and when you find out, I won't say I told you so.
This is a complex matter. Thank you for the manner in which you have assisted the court with your argument, as well as the papers that you put before us, in a way that we could understand. And we do understand that it's a complex issue, but it must be decided as soon as possible. And so we will do our best to give judgment at the latest on the 29th, which is next week, Tuesday. But if we do give it before that, we'll let you know. Okay, thank you. Court adjourns.
Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. No man can serve two masters. Either you'll love one, hate the other. He'll respect one and disrespect the other. You cannot serve God and Karl Marx. That's all I have to say today. I've reached a decision on ActionSA. ActionSA, EFF, ANC, MK. Same WhatsApp group. Let's make history together!